All right, the Lions didn't make the playoffs, but they had to sweat out the possibility of losing their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. NFL media reported last night that Johnson, who had drawn interest from the Colts, the Texans, and the Cardinals, I believe, maybe the Panthers, one of those teams in there. He's a North Carolina native. I can't remember the three teams, but there were three teams. He has informed the Lions he's staying put. He was scheduled to meet with the Panthers today. Now, this could be a factor of he really didn't think he was going to get a job this cycle.
Right.
Or because, look, and this is another one of those predictive narratives that people in our business just kind of lazily throw out there. Well, he's sure to be a hot candidate again next year. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Byron Leftwich was a hot candidate last year.
Right.
He ain't won this year. We're going to talk about him coming up. So the world changes quickly in the NFL. Every season is different. When the window is open, you better try to get through it because that window may be slammed shut a year from now. It may be your only chance. And, Chris, I didn't know a whole lot about Ben Johnson's background. Ben Johnson's 36. Ben Johnson's been a coordinator all of 1 year. He replaced Anthony Lynn, who was fired after 1 year with Dan Campbell. He's a holdover from Matt Patricia's staff. He's a guy who didn't get fired along with everyone else when Dan Campbell took over. And this gets back to a conversation I've had with many people over the years, and it really is amazing to me. And I don't know what owners are thinking. And maybe they're just influenced by people in the media who just assume hot coordinator equals definite head coach. Well, what do we know about Ben Johnson's leadership skills? What do we know about whether or not he's going to be a successful head coach? Is he ready? Should he wait? Right? The fair-haired young coordinator doesn't always become successful head coach. The problem is you really don't know until they go do the job. But I'd like to think there's some way to glean whether or not this person can come take over a room and provide the leadership necessary to be successful. And, I'm thinking Nathaniel Hackett while I say that, but I also remember when Matt LaFleur got the job with the Packers thinking, man, they're going to eat him alive in that locker room with Aaron Rodgers and all his passive-aggressive nonsense, and LaFleur's not going to last. He's not going to be able to run that team, and he's done a great job. So, the bottom line is Ben Johnson's ship may come in. We'll find out if and when it does, whether he can be a successful head coach. But for now, he's tapping out. My concern would be there's no guarantee you're going to be able to tap back in.
No, you're right. There's not. I mean, to me, it does have the feel of kind of how you started the conversation off here with this subject, right? That he kind of, reading between the tea leaves there and just, feeling the temperature of the water. I think he started to realize probably that he was not going to get one of those jobs, which I understand. Again, I don't think Carolina or the Broncos, for that matter, those two specifically, are looking for the new upstart guy, right? I mean, they kind of just got burned by that. So that's
absolutely
right. They're out the door. And then it gets into Houston, the Colts, that conversation there. Okay, maybe there's some logic. It seems, again, I don't know. Houston looks like they're looking for somebody a little more, proven as well. But with Ben Johnson, I think you said it right. There's still questions. Is he really ready to do that yet? I don't think that's going to make owners feel warm and cozy or GMs that are in the hiring process. His offense is awesome. We can look at it from, the last year and a half or so and go, whoa, they've done some great things. They are an offense, going back to the past conversation with Justin Herbert and the Chargers, where it would be perfect. I mean, again, let's not only awesome offense on both sides as far as running and throwing, but creativity, like we showed in our pregame right before the Packers, the ability to tie plays together. Hey, there's this play. Hey, there's this play. Hey, this play looks like the play you just saw a few times. Oh, it's something else. He's great at that. And then has a few wrinkles off of that as well, as well as being aggressive. I mean, Jared Goff, look at what he's done with Jared Goff. I know Dan Campbell deserves some of this credit too, but this was by far Jared Goff's best year of his career. I don't even care what the stats say. He might have had better years stats-wise with the Rams, but like we talked about, it was, all about, well, we got to make it easy for Jared and let him throw it to the guy in the flat and hope he can run for something. They built Jared Goff into no, Jared, you got to throw this in here. Look at these throws we're showing right here. These are things we did not see from him in a consistent basis from Goff. So he's obviously got some skill. We'll see. But you're right. There's probably a few more answers or questions that need to be answered for owners and GMs who are in this hiring process.
It's entirely possible he'll be a superstar, and I think we see owners take calculated risks all the time, that they want to catch that star on the way up because once it's fully risen, somebody else will be employing that star head coach. But what a fascinating exercise it is. And I've been meaning to write about this because, just the whole question of who does and doesn't get second chances and what you can do to sanitize your resume to get that second chance. Like, okay, I failed as a head coach, but I went back and I was a coordinator and we had a couple of good years, so now I get a chance to be a head coach again. Well, why is that person going to be different the second time around?
Yeah.
Just because they went back to the job they did well enough to get them a head coaching opportunity in the first place, whereas you've got former head coaches out there who did well, who and look, we employ one of them in Jason Garrett. His
exactly
name
right.
up.
If you look at, you're right. If you look at Jason Garrett's resume, it's way better than people want to give it credit for. That's for sure.
And I don't. This isn't help our guy get a job. Okay, Bill O'Brien.
Yes,
they're talking about him as an offensive coordinator. Why the hell aren't they talking about Bill O'Brien as a head coaching candidate?
Right.
He
don't
did
get
well
that either.
with the Texans.
Better than well.
In a dysfunctional organization, as we've learned.
Right.
And he still did well. What about Marvin Lewis? Marvin Lewis threw his hat back into the ring and everybody ignored it. He did well in a dysfunctional organization with Andy Dalton. We see what Andy Dalton's been since he left the Bengals.
Yeah.
He hasn't been the guy that he was with the Bengals.
Yeah.
And he's still young enough that he still should be pretty good.
Right.
And he's not when he's not with Marvin Lewis and the Bengals. And hell, I'll even throw in Mike Zimmer. I mean, Mike Zimmer was good enough that at least you consider giving him an interview. You at least bring him in. He could be the exact opposite they're looking for in Arizona, right?
Yes.
You want somebody to come in and kick some ass and take some names and get Kyler Murray pointed in the right direction. He's at least a guy you bring in and talk to him and pick his brain a little bit, or at least see what he's learned through the downfall of his time in Minnesota. People are capable of changing and growing even in their 60s, man.
Definitely.
So
Frank Reich would be another one I'd throw in that conversation.
Well, Reich's getting an interview with the Cardinals.
Right.
He's getting an interview with the Cardinals. That came up last night.
Yeah.
So, but if Reich's getting one,
yes, right.
These other names that we mentioned, like, how is this happening? How does this dance card get put together? Who is it out there that's deciding these are the names? Is it just follow the leader, like one name lands on an interview list, so all the other owners decide I better interview that person too?
Well, yeah.
And nobody and everybody ignores, these folks who are hiding in plain sight that aren't even getting the time of day. It's just weird. And I'm not saying they should be hired. What I'm saying is, why aren't you bringing him in to talk to him? Marvin Lewis made it clear he wants another opportunity. Why wouldn't you talk to Marvin Lewis? Why wouldn't you talk to Bill O'Brien? Why wouldn't you talk to Jason Garrett? Why wouldn't you talk to Mike Zimmer? And I'm sure there's others I'm not thinking of, and I apologize to those folks if I'm not thinking of them. But coaches who did well, who didn't go back into the mill of, I'm going to go be an NFL coordinator and do the thing I did that got me the job in the first place, and hope they forget that I didn't do a very good job as a head coach because I went back and did a good enough job as a coordinator that they thought, well, this guy's doing a good job as a coordinator and he's got head coaching experience, even if it wasn't great, and we're going to hire him as a head coach again.
Yeah, Mike, you said a lot of awesome things there. I agree with you. I do. I mean, hey, Jim Caldwell. I mean, I'll throw him in there too. Like, what the hell?
Yes.
He got to coach the dysfunctional Lions and overachieved every year he was coaching there, and then he never gets a chance because they go, well, they didn't advance in the playoffs. I'm going to be like, how did they make the playoffs? That's what I wanted to ask, right? I mean, been to a Super Bowl with the Colts. I mean, not for a few injuries on their football team, they're going to beat the Saints and a great onside kick. I don't understand it either. I think a little bit, Mike, it's a really deep conversation that really would probably take a full segment. But it's a little bit of, perception and media hype. It's also the mob. The mob plays a part in this. It's the social.
You mean the mafia?
Well, no, not them. Not exactly Don Corleone, but the Don Corleone assholes on Twitter and Instagram and everybody else who are just all in it to ruin people's lives.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah, well, no, yeah. Yeah, they want people to professionally swim with the fishes and Luca Brasi, okay? But not actually kill them, right?
Sleep.
Sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Not swim.
Yeah,
swim
right.
is
Sleep.
fine.
Yeah,
swim is a normal activity for the fishes. fishes.
Sleeping with the fishes. And then also, I think also the coaching tree you come from. Like, if Ben Johnson was with Shanahan this year and had those results, I think everybody goes, whoa, let's hire him, right? And that I think has to do with it, but it's Dan Campbell, and they seem like a bunch of crazy meatheads up there. So let me just evaluate that one more year, right? I mean, I think it's a little bit of all that. And, yeah, for whatever reason, I do think owners and GMs, they take the temperature of the social media mob that we're talking about a little bit, because they know if it's something that's unpopular, that group is just going to wait for one bad thing and go, whoa, you hired Jason Garrett? He never went to the Super Bowl ever. Like, you guys are so stupid. What were you thinking? Right? And it's just that also plays a factor in this. And it is a fascinating psychological experiment, to your point. And if Ben Johnson stays the course, he'll be a head coach sooner rather than later.
If he stays the course, and once he gets the opportunity, we'll find out whether or not he can do it. There's a chapter in Playmakers, by the way, that focuses on this concept of the NFL owners getting caught up in what basically is a realization of the Peter Principle. That's a satirical concept that was devised in the 60s, that basically we all rise to the level of our own incompetence because we keep getting promoted when we do a job well, so we get promoted. You do a job well, you get promoted. You keep getting promoted until you get into a job you can't do, then you don't get promoted anymore. And in the NFL, when it happens, you get fired.
Right.
But the skill set is so fundamentally different for head coaches. And as an owner, you basically got three tracks, right? General tracks. Coordinator who's never been a coach before. Guy who's been a head coach before, whether he's gone back to be a coordinator or he's done other things, or college coach. Those are the three tracks. And we're not seeing a whole lot of college coach run this year except for Jim Harbaugh. I think Matt Rule may have set that back a little while,
Urban
as did
Meyer.
Kingsbury,
Right.
frankly.
Yeah.
Urban Meyer, exactly.
Yeah.
But it seems more, again, this year, it's the rising coordinator, except for the teams that have been burned by the rising coordinator. And it's funny how we see teams do that ping pong, that pendulum swing, the exact opposite. And we look at what happened to the Broncos. They've had 3 straight first-time head coaches who were previously coordinators. And the other teams don't learn these lessons vicariously. It's fascinating to me. And what also is fascinating is all happening in a compressed time frame. You fire your coach either during the season or immediately after, and then it's go, 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 go. We got to go find a head coach. And I think some of these folks just kind of get to the point where they're tired of the process. It's too much. I don't want to fly here. I don't want to fly there. I don't want to do this. It's a long day. I've had enough. Let's just hire somebody and be done with it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's a tiring process, I think, for not only, the candidates that are up for it year after year and swing and miss and don't get that opportunity. The other thing that's a pain in the ass is it drives the head coaches crazy. Because they're always like, wait, is he leaving? Is he staying? Who am I going to make the next guy? And every year, oh, wait, we're preparing for this game, but you're preparing for an interview. And it goes on year after year, too, where it exhausts a team. I'm sure that's a little bit how Andy Reid feels in Kansas City. Yeah, he's like, what the hell? And, Eric Bieniemy should be a head coach already. But every year during the playoffs, I got to deal with, hey, he's going here. He might get hired. I got to think about a replacement and tell that guy, hey, I might need you to replace you if he goes. But if he doesn't, hey, I'll try to find another spot for you. So it stresses organizations out. It's a stressful process altogether. There is no exact formula to figuring out who's getting hired or whatever else. It's a lot connection-based, as we know. That's the biggest thing. Who's in the
agents too?
The agent? Who is the owner listening to and being advised by? Who's the GM? Where's he been before? What are his relationships and prior history? And that's how a lot of the times a lot of these connections get made. And it should be an interesting hiring cycle. Nonetheless, it seems like it's going to be here at the early get-go.
There's a small handful of agents who are basically the kingmakers when it comes to coaches and GMs, and that's not good either. And you'd like to think the owners are smart enough to see through that as well. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.